Hey guys, it's Brett Williams from BrettFX.com here. Exciting news, Apple just launched Creator Studio about a week and a half ago, so I've had some time to dig in. If you didn't know, Creator Studio consists of Final Cut Pro 12 and 9 other creative apps, an entire suite of software for iPad and desktop. Everything you need for audio, video, graphic design included in one suite. It's really an amazing value at only $13 a month or $130 a year. $3 a month if you're a student, or $30 a year. A really great value. And beyond the new subscription options, everyone, of course, is talking about the 3 new flagship AI features. But as a content creator, in this video, I want to focus on the new premium content included with the studio version of Final Cut Pro. You can still buy the standalone version of Final Cut Pro 12, but it's the premium content that comes with the studio subscription that differentiates the two. And if you hang with me long enough, I want to show you one more update, a little hidden gem I don't think anybody's talking about. Something we've been asking for like 15 years. It's kind of become a running gag. And best of all, it's available in both the studio and the standalone versions. All right, with that all said, let's jump right over here into the Titles and Generators browser and check out the premium content that comes with Final Cut Pro Studio version. Right away, you'll see there's a couple little blue dots here, signifying that there's new content in these sections. So let's twirl open Titles and Generators there. And we've got, with the studio version, a new section at the top of each one of these. All of these new titles are actually located in the Dynamic Titles category, broken up into their respective themes. So there are 8 new themes, each with 7 different styles included in here. And over in Generators, we've got 17 new shapes, a couple replicator effects, some countdown timers. These are great. Let's first look at all of our new dynamic titles. And so with the new dynamic titles, I heard a lot of comments out there that they're not premium, they're not pro. That's all subjective. I'll leave that all up to you guys. But as I dug in, I did find them to be deceptively simple. They have a lot of useful controls. So down here in the timeline, I've thrown some of these in. Most all of them have type animation controls. And of course, you can change the color and the background. So here's a sidebar from Community Colorful. Even this simple little one, what I found here is this build in by control. And this controls how the text builds in. All at once, or line by line, word by word, or by character, like a type-on effect. Let's switch it to character. Pretty simple, pretty easy, but you have these other controls. A lot of these have these drift-in controls where you can change how far away the character is coming in from. Let's click and drag to the right to where this is more like 1,000. I guess it's going to come from either. Oh, it is coming from over the video. I see it coming from over that. Maybe even more obvious if we changed it to line. Yeah, I like that. And now you can also change the drift out control so it can drift out. Let's say we make it drop off the bottom of the screen. So let's set that back to 0. It's not going to drift out at all. And we can change the drift out Y. Click and drag this to where it's probably going to drop off the bottom. For just a simple little bar, a really nice control. And now here in this more tease look for Community, I kind of feel like there's too much space here on the right. Like this mask, not right where I want it. But over here in the controls, I can move the mask. I can also make the mask bigger. So now my mask is right where I want it. Very useful. Moving on quick. Most of these you can change things like background opacity wherever it's applicable. As we move on to Editorial, I love sidebars that push the video over. And this one does it great. It pushes the video over to the left, but it also has this little position slider. So we can change the position of the footage. So let's change that a little bit. And what if I wanted the sidebar to come in from the left? I can click the reverse button. And of course I can change these colors and the text. We can make the text, red. So now it's a little more obvious. This color wipe comes in from the left because I clicked on this reverse box. You get the idea. So mosaic, I like Journal's mosaic here. It's just super simple. There really aren't that many controls for this one, except you can control the color of the bar. But the text, of course, I can move the text around to wherever I want. That's nice. Just click and drag it. And you'll find that also occurs in most of these templates. Like here is Journal's simple title over background. So that gives us a solid background. In this case, we can change the background opacity. And then we discover that you can just click on any of these that look like kind of a floating box or an overlay and drag them, and the box moves with it. You don't have to adjust the box. And if you make the size of the text bigger, the box, it just goes right along with it. Change the font if you want to. So you can change this bar color at the bottom. Even when you change the bar size, everything just works. It's very well thought out. I am impressed. So let's see what happens when it animates in down to the bottom. Yeah, it does what you want. You're not seeing some edges of it as it animates in. All right, another one that I like here in the fitness dark category. A lot of them have this nice little like edge, like a line across the bottom. You can't really see it here. So I'm gonna eyedropper it to grab the color of that car. So that's a really nice little look. Just simple but useful. And if I want to reverse it, it animates in from the other direction. Okay, that's smart. And this one is Journal. Journal has a nice little blur on as a bar wipes across. And you can change the scale of the bar. And title over footage here. I like this little bar thing, so I can scale it up so it's across the whole length of the text. But if I want to, I can click and make it a little longer and just click and like I was talking about before, you can just drag it to somewhere else if you like. And the background fades in. We can make that background a little bit transparent. Change the color to maybe something kind of warm. We'll go with that just for demonstration's sake. Santa Fe is a nice one, kind of an action one. And its more tease look kind of shrinks down, gives you a little box in the middle. We can change the width of this. We can change the roundness of it. And we can change the background opacity. Let's see how that looks. And we have just the regular title. Let's move this down. And you can control the direction it builds in from. Let's have it build in from the left and out to the right. Now it's kind of wiping across. Very cool. Scientific, maybe more corporate or educational. But I like how the background is kind of gives you that same opacity. But I do like how this part wipes in, the little animated list. But of course it's in the wrong place. We don't want it over his face. You just click and drag it over to the right. And it animates in just as you expect. All right, well, that's about it for a small sampling of the latest batch of dynamic titles. The first to come with Studio. I think they're pretty clean, stylish, and a fair bit customizable. So let's go ahead and jump over here to the generators and check out what's new. Just running through here, we've got kind of an arc. We've got some generic, shapes. There's a dot grid. There's a line grid. That's pretty cool. There's a pill, a rectangle. This thing animates on pretty cool. But is this stuff premium? Is it pro? I think these are more aimed at maybe the advanced user, somebody who wants to composite some stuff and isn't afraid to keyframe some adjustments or to make some adjustments in the inspector to, make it unique, to make it its own. And these are all great for, you can mix and match them and combine and make them into backgrounds or masks. But also in the essentials category, we've got some nice little timers. And let's just jump right in and take a look. Here, the first one I got down here on the timeline is this arc effect. You can control, which direction it rotates. You can, of course, change the color, the length, the thickness, and the rotation rate. So very useful. So next up, we have the arrow. All of these, where appropriate, have on-screen controls for rotation and scale and position. But you can also change the colors. You can make it a gradient. Of course, you can change to a double-headed arrow if you want to. This little chevron, I can definitely see using this. I've set it to kind of bounce in. You could shrink this down and put it next to a bullet point. Let's move on to this diagonal shape. That could be extremely useful in just making a mask or a box for a title. And all you got to do to change the shape or even the angle or position is drag these start and finish marks. And this one, like a lot of them, you have a little outline box. So now we can add an outline to this. Let's not make it blue. Let's make it, yellow or something. Change the width of the outline and change the offset. So, you could keyframe something to animate out. A lot of stuff. Soften. Moving on to the dotted grid. Now, this is pretty advanced. This is a replicator type effect, this dotted grid here. Up in the browser, it just looks like this little dotted grid. But drop it down in the timeline, and you can start playing with the width, the height, the number of dots, columns and rows. And they're offset. Okay, that kind of gives it a skew look. Okay, the offset. The dot scale. I think this scales kind of all the dots, but I've got it set to where there's an end scale and a start scale. Now you throw in some randomness and you get this kind of like unique pattern, right? And then the animation spread, kind of controlling how the dots animate on. You can move them closer together. If you keyframe this, what could you create with this? All kinds of neat stuff. Let's move on to the line up here in the browser. It's just a line. But once you throw it in the timeline, I can add different caps to the end. I can add an arrow to one end, right? Or a reverse arrow, where it aims the other way. A circle. That's what we've got on the other end here. Or a ball or a block. But I kind of like the circle and maybe an arrow. And this unique little mirrored function here. So now if you animate the rotation, it's from the center of the line. And without mirrored, it would be more like a clock. Line grid. This one is really cool. You can change the width and the height, line thickness, cell opacity. I think the cells are black, so let's change that to, blue or something we can see. There we go. So now we can change the thickness. You can, of course, rotate it, change the position and the scale all from right here. But you also have the option to corner pin it. So, we could make, I don't know, one of those 80s horizons here. Because you can also add some animation to this. So if we slide this animate offset X, that's going to be left to right. Let's do the Y. See what happens when we play that back. There's your 80s animated horizon sort of thing. But I could see using this corner pinning for a lot of stuff. The pill is one of the simpler ones, so you can add a gradient to it. This will trim from the center. It gives you a spot in the middle where you have a left and right piece coming out. Of course, you can change the thickness and the length. Let's look at this rectangle here. You can scale and shape it any which way you want here. Position it by dragging in the middle. Drag these corners to shape it any which way you like. And it animates on, by default, from like left to right. You can change where it animates from, even full screen. Let's try full screen. That's going to zoom it back. And if you wanted it to scale from the upper right, like I said, scales from the upper right. You can change the way it animates out as well. The same controls here. I can change where it animates to, let's say lower left. And I think you can add an outline to this one as well. Oh, you can change the roundness, and the offset of the outline, and the thickness. Super useful. Next, we have these two repeated lines and repeated shapes. These are more replicator type effects. Here, I have adjusted the start and end point, and I've adjusted the randomness or the end thickness and the end length, so they're taller, shorter, and they animate on and off. And repeated shapes, pretty easy to dismiss this one up here, but once you start digging in, You can change the shape to whatever you want, maybe a star. You know, change the arrangement and the, let's see, the width of this pattern here. Let's see, the different amount of rows or columns. Tile offset. Okay, that's that same sort of skew thing. What I like again is these like scale randomness sort of sliders. You know, the scale end. So I think we can randomize the angle here with this angle randomness control. And they kind of wipe on in a certain pattern. We got these different, you know, choices here. Very useful. Love it. Let's move on to split color. You know what? I'm going to start with it just like it is over here in the browser. So it basically just closes up and then opens. But right away, so you get a little control here, so you can change the position of where that happens. You can change the angle. You know, let's do something like this. Maybe it was like a lower third or something you wanted to do. You can change the two colors. So let's make one blue here, aqua, whatever, that kind of blue-green. And I can make the other one kind of purple. You can change the opacity of each side independently. So this is, it's kind of like a letterbox extreme, right? Change the opacity of the other side. You can change how far these close in. And then you can decide if you want it to close in from open or from closed. So it's going to start off closed and open to that amount. And the way we have it set now, it goes ahead and it continues on and wipes off. But we can make it close back up to close. So a lot of very nicely thought out. You can even soften the edges if you wanted to. Moving on down to the essentials category, we've got these countdown timers, which these are going to be great for sports or, you know, exercise videos, maybe cooking. And so let's see, let's get that one up in the browser. So I've changed the colors already. I can, of course, change the font if I want to. We can change whether it counts up or counts down or is a percent. And it has its on-screen controls for scale and position. And another one here that just has a little bit of a different look. I've kind of changed the font and the colors on this one as well. Okay, so I like that. Next up, we have this letterbox and pillar box. I much prefer this idea of having a letterbox or a pillar box as an overlay. Much more useful than trying to apply a letterbox effect to a compound clip or to an adjustment layer. Plus, this animates in, and you can control all the colors. Like on this one, I've already kind of changed the letterbox bar to blue, and you can see it animate in there. And kind of the edge, I gave it kind of a, let's go back to like white, but kind of gave it a yellow tint there. We can make the bar be, I don't know, kind of a green and white. It gives us some on-screen controls too, though, here for the size of our letterbox and the position. So this would be using it in kind of an artistic sense. It can, of course, be used just as a standard letterbox that animates in and out. We also have a pillar box effect that works much the same way. Let's move on to this last little one, the progress bar. One more little utility that I think kind of flies under the radar. But down here, I've, you know, kind of given it some color, a little yellow, a little red. And let's look at it in the inspector. We can change the color, of course, and it still looks pretty simple. But what it does have, what you don't realize, is it's got a whole bunch of little options here. We can make it flat, a couple outline options here, thicker, thinner. That kind of gives it a rounded look. Little square dots, round dots, diamonds, and of course, this little kind of angled look. And so that's it really for all the new titles and generators that come with Final Cut Pro Studio. But, all right, I did promise one more piece of content, one updated piece of content, actually. A piece of content that's in both Studio and in the standalone version. It's a generator, actually. Over here in the Elements category, the Shapes generator has received an update, and I think I'm the first person to talk about it. We've been waiting for this update for like 15 years. It's almost become a running gag. Let's drag the Shapes generator to the timeline and see what's going on. Previously, the Shapes generator only had a single little on-screen control just to control the position. It didn't have, this is new, it didn't have a scale control. And let's switch this to a square so we can better see what's going on here and make the outline a little bit wider. It didn't have a rotation control. And you say, well, okay, that's cool. That's cool. But that's not it. That's not it. There's more. Let me put this kind of back to center here. Previously, if you wanted to make a very specific square shape, you had to go over here to the transform controls. So now you're transforming the whole frame, really, not the object. And you had to scale, you know, the X and the Y until you got just the size and shape that you wanted. And as you can see, the problem with that is that this outline is getting distorted. But, so I noticed in the new version, come back, go, let's reset this. This is fantastic. This is great. In the new version, you now have, down here with the center scale and rotation, you now have this little slider called Distort. So simple, but so great. Look at this. It distorts and makes it taller and narrower, or if you go the other way, shorter and wider. And look at the outline. Perfect. Nice, equidistant, even, all around, not distorted. This is wonderful. But there's more. There's a little bit more. This applies to every shape. Pentagon, circle. Now we can make an oval, right? So we can make an oval and it has a perfectly non-distorted outline. Before, it'd be all squished and wide and one, you know, like you saw with the rectangle there. We've even got 3 different types of stars here, and we can make them distort in any which way we want. Really good thing to distort is an arrow, because an arrow, we just have this one shaped arrow, right? And you just scale it and, you know, of course we can change the outline. Let's make the outline a little bit better now. But with this distort tool, we can make a squatty arrow, a long narrow arrow. So anyway, it's a very useful little slider distort, okay? But that's not it. That's not it. And maybe you saw over here in the shape menu, we've got a lot of shapes to choose from. We've even got 3 stars. We never before had, and it's right here at the bottom, we never had a triangle. After 15 years, they finally listened to us. Somebody at Apple loves us. They added a triangle. And they made it work right with the distortion control, the on-screen controls. So maybe this isn't the great big reveal, but I haven't seen anybody else mention this. They've got a triangle. We have a freaking triangle. Thank you, Apple. So I think it's a good sign of things to come. Let's make the edges nice and pointy. There we go. You know, we can distort this too. Incredibly useful to have a triangle now. If you needed a triangle, there was no triangle. There were literally tutorials and plugins and products dedicated to creating or buying a triangle. There were people asking on forums, where's the triangle? It became a running gag. It really did. And I've been there the whole time going, oh, sure, there must be a triangle. Nope, no triangle. We got 3 stars, but no triangle. So that's it. That's the big reveal. Call it an exclusive. I have not heard anybody else mention the triangle, nor the distort control, nor the on-screen controls that come with it. This is a great update, and I guess it puts it in line with all the other shapes. They just wanted to make it all kind of go together. And you know, with this triangle, I kind of feel like Apple has righted the ship, set us on a new course, and given us a new commitment to the app. But seriously, you know, like and subscribe or click on one of these videos or something. I don't know. Until the next one, happy editing.